Hi. So for the project this week, I decided I was gonna make a video to kind of switch it up a little bit. We do a lot of writing in your class, so I figured I'd be a little different with this project. So two different topics that had a large impact on me this semester were definitely the death, loss, and grief chapter. I got to learn about the seven stages of death and grief, and I thought it was all actually amazing. I actually had no idea that was even a thing, and it actually made so much sense to me. Like all the stages you would go through from being angry to then being sad and emotional, and I just thought that was so cool that kind of like the way you feel is like kind of like taken and put it onto like kind of like a scale. I also thought it was just really important in general because it's like a lifelong thing that happens. And I know when I was younger, it was really hard for me to understand why someone in my family had died, or why it happened, or why they got sick, or why I was never going to see them again. And that's something that's really hard to wrap your head around because kids don't understand that, like, maybe they don't see them today, but they also don't understand that they're not going to ever see that person again until, like, obviously heaven one day if you believe in that. So it's also just really important for lifelong journeys in life to know that, like, once someone dies, they're not coming back, but like they had a great life, and it's always so great to honor them and whatnot. But also to know the stages, so you can also kind of like get help too if you're having a really hard time grieving with a death. I also really liked how teachers were taught to be honest with students and not lie about, like, let's say a student had died or a student was hurt, to not lie to them about like what had happened, because in reality they're going to learn about it eventually in their life. So you might as well be honest with them and let them know so they can start learning at a younger age and become used to these types of sad things that happen in the world. Um, Another thing that really had an impact on me this semester was a cyberbullying chapter. Cyberbullying is awful. I know in the generation we live, it's like a really big deal because technology is such a big deal, and being, behind a computer, behind a phone screen all day long, and people are just so mean to others, and it's really sad, especially even in like elementary school now, middle school. They all have phones now because generations have just changed so much, and they just think it's okay to just like say really mean things to people, and I know girls like especially get a lot of that, and not so much boys because boys are more into like the video game aspect. Um, but it's just really sad because everyone shouldn't feel the same way. No one should ever feel bad about themselves or feel like a misfit or feel like they don't fit in. And I just think that's really sad because youth violence is the second leading cause of death, and that's very easily preventable, which is really sad. I also thought it was really sad that 1,560 children die a year from abuse and neglect. I couldn't even imagine having to go home to my family at night and worry about getting beat by my parents or getting beat by a sibling. It's just like extremely sad to think that they can't go home to somewhere safe every night. Because that was just the way I've always known my whole life, and I wouldn't even know what to do because that's just, no one should ever have to deal with something like that because everyone deserves to be loved by their family and friends, and that's just extremely sad and uncalled for, honestly. Something that I really liked learning about this chapter in this semester, the chapter was the drugs and alcohol chapter. I liked it because it was kind of something that I already kind of knew about, but I also got to learn like a little bit more about knowledge about like the drugs and alcohol and kind of what it does to you. And I found out a lot of like little details, like the kids that have the higher grades are more likely to engage in like the behaviors like drinking and alcohol and binge drinking, and which is also really sad because these kids are going to get into like the worst behaviors where they have really bright futures ahead with college and high school grades and like getting everything up so that they can get into good colleges and have a really bright future. But when you start doing like risky behaviors like that, it's a little bit harder to engage in things like that. I also found that um, frequent users are 5 times more likely to drop out of school, which is also extremely sad because those kids also could have a bright future, and they, you know what I mean, have worked so hard for so long, and even if they're in middle school, they've worked for all those years in school to try to get their grades up to have a really bright future and to get a really amazing job when they graduate. So I think that's really sad that they drop out and then they don't really do much with their lives because that's just sad, and everyone should be able to, you know what I mean, grow up and have a really bright future with a family and be able to support their family. Um, so I really think that I can use these things in the future to teach, guide, and steer students in the right direction. I really am like kind of guided to maybe want to be a teacher in health. I'm not really exactly sure. Maybe a teacher or maybe a guidance counselor. I'm not really sure, but I love like being a positive role, and I love when I even get to babysit girls and boys and teach them all the amazing things that happen, and being super supportive and telling them like how amazing they are, and like, you know what I mean, just like pointing out the little things. Like I love positivity. I love making people feel better about themselves, and I love like watching people grow. So I think it's great to like learn and to teach them and to guide them as they continue their journey through life. Thanks so much. I hope you have a great rest of the semester.